Hey guys, I'm here today to talk about my favourite reads of 2018. So I have 6 books that made it to my favourite reads of the year, but then I have 10 honourable mentions. So these are all books I read in 2018, but they're not necessarily books that were published in 2018, although I think a few of them actually were. So the reason I've decided to include some honourable mentions is because 6 top books isn't many, and so I feel like it'd be nice to feature some extras. And also I'm well aware that I'm a really harsh reviewer of books. I've got like worse, better, whatever that means, over the years. And so books that 3 years ago I would have given 5 stars and been like, these were amazing, I'm now like, I don't know, like I just am super harsh. So I've got 6 which I think are absolutely blow your mind, phenomenal, and then 10 that I still think are amazing. I really want to push them more, I want more people to read them, but they just weren't at the same calibre as those final 6. So I'm going to talk about those 10 first, very briefly, because I've reviewed like all of these books nearly in separate videos, so I'll link all of these books down below, as well as any videos where I've previously spoke about them at length. So I only have one non-fiction that's made this entire list, which I'm very sad about and just proves I need to read more non-fiction, and that is Evicted: Poverty and Profit in the American City by Matthew Desmond. So I heard loads of people talk about this one when it came out. I think it won the Pulitzer, yes, the 2017 Pulitzer Prize, and it is as amazing as everyone says. It's a really accessible non-fiction read, and it feels very much like a story about actual people, because it is. It doesn't feel like a book about dry statistics. It's amazing, I'd highly recommend it. Then we have Luck in the Shadows by Lynda. This is the first book in an epic fantasy series. It's 7 books long, and I've read the first 3 so far, and I picked these up at a point in the year when I wasn't really reading and I was really struggling, and I just really enjoyed them. They're really fun. Albus is meowing. They're really fun, and I really fell in love with the characters, so I'd really recommend these for sort of some more light fantasy if you're a fantasy reader. Then we have The Book of Dust by Pullman. So I wasn't expecting to really enjoy this that much at all, because I was never a massive fan of the original trilogy. I've enjoyed them as an adult but didn't read them as a child. But I was sent this one for review and I just picked it up when it arrived and fell in love with it. This was very nearly one of my favourite books of the year, but if you've read it, I won't spoil anything, but you'll know what I'm talking about. I was loving the first 2/3 when it was less adventure focused and it was just really slow, like about our protagonist working at his family's inn, going to visit the nuns. It was all quite quiet and ploddy, and then it gets a little bit more like each chapter is a mini adventure towards the end, and that just lessened it for me a little bit, but I still have really warm feelings when I think of this book and can't wait for the series to continue. So there's that one. Then we have Euphoria by Lily King. This is a book I'd had on my shelf for quite a few years and was convinced I would absolutely love, and I really enjoyed it. I sped through this one. This is a really great book about some anthropologists who live in New Guinea and about their sort of love triangle that has all different directions. There's lots of conflict, and I just thought this was such an amazing read and will definitely pick it up again in the future. Then we have The Break by Katherine. This is an amazing novel. It's quite a difficult read. It deals with sexual violence and assault, so if you find those sort of things really upsetting to read, I wouldn't recommend this one because it is quite graphic, but it's a really amazing novel. This is set in a really snowy and small town in Canada and follows the lives of many women in a family as an assault happens to one of the younger members of the family, and how that sort of affects all the generations and how they view assault in their community. And I just really felt attached to this family and really wanted it to work out for them, so I'd highly recommend this one. Then we have Tender by Belinda McCain. I read this right at the end of the year and really enjoyed it. As I said, this was very nearly a 5-star read for me. There was just a portion towards the second half where I felt it could have been edited a little bit, but in the first half I was completely in love. I was compulsively reading and couldn't put this down, so yeah, I'd really recommend this one if you enjoy novels about obsessive relationships, novels that are very much focused on you know, the relationship between characters and their inner monologue and their dialogue. It just feels very claustrophobic, and I think this was a really excellently done novel, so there's that one. Then these last 4 I've saved until the end of my honourable mentions, because I feel like they're all quite thematically similar, and I feel like they really show a certain niche in my reading, and so if you enjoy one of them, I think it's likely that you'll enjoy the others. So the first one is All Among the Barley by Melissa Harrison. This is a historical fiction novel set in the Suffolk countryside, and it follows a young female protagonist as some things start to go wrong in her local community and as she grows up. It is beautifully written, amazing nature writings. I'm going to say that about all 4 of these novels, and I just really loved it. It's quite slow, quite ploddy, but just beautifully described, and I really enjoyed all the characters, so that one is amazing. If you enjoy that one, it's highly likely you will also enjoy Midwinter and vice versa. This is also set in the Suffolk countryside, and this follows a father and son in contemporary times as they have a conflict in their relationship, and it's how they deal with that, or don't really deal with it because they don't really communicate with one another. Again, beautifully written, and just a really emotionally rich novel. I really loved this one. And then these last 2 are also nature focused, and they both also follow sort of teenage, young adult protagonists, but they both have an element of magic and mythology, so I think if you enjoy one you would enjoy the other. And this is Swan Song by Kerry Andre. This was a book that I was incredibly tempted to put in my favourite reads of the year to make the top 6 or top 7, and I was really surprised by that. And I think because when I look back on my year of reading, there's loads of books that were amazing, you know, all these books were amazing, but this was one I thought back on and remembered how much I'd enjoyed reading it, how compelled I was to carry on, how easy it was to just keep turning the pages, and how much I really was rooting for a certain outcome. I know this book isn't for everyone. The character we follow is not that likeable. I guess there's quite a strong romance element. I know some people found it a bit vulgar. I really enjoyed it, and I'd happily read anything this author now brings out, and I really want to reread this one, so there's that one. And then the last one is another recent read, and that is Tiamat and the Prince of Crows by Deborah K. Davies. This is the most lyrical of all the novels I am talking about in this video. Like, it's incredibly descriptive, incredibly beautiful, and I'd highly, highly recommend it. Okay, so now on to the final 6. This first one is going to be no surprise to anyone, and that is Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. I adored this book. It was such a delight, such a fun read, and it just made me really happy. And yeah, I think this is a wonderful book for adults and children alike. I'm sure you've all heard loads about it, so I won't say any more. But if you haven't picked it up yet, I would really recommend it because it's a really phenomenal children's book. So there's that one. And then the other one I want to mention now is Daughter of the Forest by Juliet Marlia. I listened to this on audio in December and I absolutely fell in love. I've been aware of Juliet Marlia for years and never gone to pick her books up, and then I heard Jean rave about her loads this year, and I'm so glad Jean did that because I feel like she's going to be a new favourite author. I just fell in love, and this is a 25-hour long audiobook and I sped through it and I cared so deeply. So this is historical fantasy, it's very detailed, it's very slow moving, there's not an immense amount of plot or surprises, it's very character focused and very focused on descriptions of intimate relationships and also the natural world. I thought it was beautiful, and I feel like it's one of those books that just made me feel really warm, and like all these people, I think fantasy can do this in a way that other genres just can't do, and that's to make characters feel so instantly real and truly alive, and like their lives continue regardless of whether you're reading. So I highly recommend this book. I'm continuing on with the series and I'm planning to read loads more Juliet Marlia in the coming years. You'll probably hear me talk about her lots more in 2019. Then I considered only allowing myself one book for each author, but then I thought, no, I'm not going to do that because both of these were amazing. I won't say much because I did a full video talking about both of these. So this is Normal People by Sallie Rooney and this is Conversations with Friends by Sallie Rooney. These were phenomenal. I'd say this was my favourite book of the year. I haven't forced myself to rank all of these because I think it's really difficult to compare a historical fantasy to a contemporary literary fiction. But if I had to say what my favourite read of the year was, I think it would be this, just for how unique it felt and how much it evoked in me, like how much it made me think about certain conversations these characters had. Just, yeah, it really pushed and affected my life really deeply, and I just absolutely loved it. So phenomenal book. I love this one too. This one is, you know, my favourite, but if I hadn't read this and I'd just read this, I'd be like, this is truly phenomenal. So highly recommend both of these. If you want to hear more, I'll link the video down below where I talk about them more in depth. We have Red Clocks by Lenny Zumas. I really, really love this book. I know it's not for everybody, but I thought it was an excellent novel and a real example of how experimental fiction can be done well. So you have 6 different women's voices in this that tell the story of a near future in which loads of new laws have been passed in the US that are all commenting on a woman's right to conceive or give birth. So abortion has been made illegal. It's been made illegal to have in vitro fertilisation, so people just keep going and trying to have children again and again. And the reason it's made illegal is because it's been made illegal to move an embryo because they've been given like the right to be a person, and so you can't move them without their permission. It's all incredibly extreme, but it's just handled so well. I didn't feel that any of these characters were caricatures. I really enjoyed it and it really made me think, and I really enjoyed all the different types of writing style within it, and just thought it was a novel that really pushed me and you know, gave me a lot to think about, which I always love. And then one that I haven't spoken loads about actually, and that's because when I read this I said I was going to reread it and then review it, and haven't yet done that, and that's Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. This is an amazing book, and for such a short book it has so many different themes, but yet it doesn't feel crowded. It doesn't feel like Sarah Moss tried to do too much and got carried away. It really feels like she handles them all expertly in the space she has. This deals with the patriarchy, with feminism, with class, with geography and how class is affected by geography and age. It just so many different things. I loved this, and I read this in one sitting and I got increasingly more tense as I read it. Like, I was in such fear towards the end about what was going to happen to the protagonist, and I think to do that in such a short amount of time is phenomenal. I really love this book. I mean, I love Sarah Moss. I've read all of her books. I think they're amazing, but this is actually one of my favourites of hers, so I'd highly recommend it. And if you haven't tried any Sarah Moss, then I think this is as good a place as any to start, because you know, it's a short one, but it's also an amazing one. So there's that. So thanks for watching. Do let me know if you've read any of these books and if they made your top reads of the year, and also do feel free to let me know if you're planning on picking any of these up after hearing me chat about them here, and feel free to let me know what your favourite 3 books of the year were. I would love to get more recommendations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!